Okay. Hi, good afternoon, Cynthia. How are you today?
Good. How about you?
I'm doing fine. It's nice to meet you. It's nice to put a face to all of the paperwork that I passed you to complete. So thank you so much. Before we get started, I did want to just clarify a few things. My name is Bianca. I am a current graduate student in keep wanting to say HCU, but Houston Christian University. And I'm working towards my master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. So I did want to let you know that currently this session will be recorded. And I know that you've again signed the paperwork, but it will be recorded just to be shown to my peers, to my professor, and to my supervisor. Is that all okay with you still?
Yes, that's okay.
Okay, perfect. Okay, and then in addition, I did want to disclose the limits of confidentiality. So if I feel like you are a threat or harm to yourself in any way, or if somebody is potentially going to, if I feel like they're going to harm you, then I do need to disclose that. And because just for Texas, like we're mandated reporters, so I would have to disclose that information. Okay. I do also want to talk about the importance of keeping up with your visits. We will potentially meet weekly. If there is ever a situation where you cannot attend the session, I would just ask that you call our organization, let us know ahead of time, so that way we can make arrangements to reschedule or just so that there's no like no show or anything like that. Okay.
Sounds
Um, and lastly, therapy is can be very beneficial. However, there's also cons. Like it doesn't work for everybody. And there might be situations where you might have to disclose certain things that are very tough to discuss, which is a natural part of the therapeutic process. But I want to ensure that you feel empowered. So if there's ever a moment where you feel like the topic is too sensitive or you don't want to discuss, just please let me know and we can definitely not go there at that moment. Okay.
okay. Sounds good.
Okay, perfect. I did want to ask, have you ever engaged in therapy before?
Yes, I have.
Okay, perfect. So you're aware of, the process and how to basically the skills that you can gain from therapy, right?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Okay. With that being said, I did get a chance to review all of your information. And from that, I saw that you want to get some life skills, some parenting topics. So do you want to go ahead and just tell me what brought you in today?
Yeah, so I guess I want to start off with parenting, um, but more talking a little bit about the co-parenting relationship that I currently have. I'm not even sure if I should call it co-parenting. But I had my daughter when I was in college. She is currently 8 years old. At the time, I was together with her dad. Um, it's a different kind of relationship with your college students. And then all of a sudden, you have a baby and everything changes. So, you just have to grow up and take care of responsibilities. And I don't think at that time he was in the space or really grasp the reality that things had changed. Um, so then after I had my daughter, our relationship definitely changed. I wasn't receiving a lot of support from him, like even when it came to taking care of my daughter, and I was getting my master's and had just finished my bachelor's, and it just didn't seem like a lot of support. I always had to rely on my friends to take care of my daughter so I could go to class and work, which kind of seemed unfair because that wasn't their responsibility. But I am grateful that they were a great support system to me. Um, so at that time, I wasn't in Houston, I was by El Paso. And I decided that it was time for me to go back home because I wanted to find a job in Houston. And also, our relationship wasn't working out. He just used to scream a lot. And babies also sense that. So it was a point where like he couldn't regulate his feelings. Everything went to like complete arguing all the time, where like even like daughter didn't would always cry when she would stay with him. And it was just like it wasn't a very I knew it wasn't in a healthy environment. So I decided to leave when she was like 6 months. Probably less than that. I'm not quite sure, but it was definitely before 6 months. Um, I moved back to Houston. We still try to do the co thing, but I'm not sure if he still grasped the responsibility of parent. For him, it was like he used to say something like, "Well, kids don't really remember until they're 5 years old." Um, but to me, it was like kids realize, or like the pattern of who's around them. Um, so our parenting relationship just didn't really grow. I didn't receive like any kind of help from him, even like financial or like even like helping us with our daughter. So it was kind of like he would visit occasionally in the holidays or her birthday. And I mean, it's been 8 years and it's been like that. But like, if I were to say something like, oh, like he wanted to see her, like he would text me and say, like, I want to see her at 3 today, just randomly. And I have, like, let's say I was out of town or I was like already had plans and I didn't have her ready, um, he would get really upset. And then that would be like, oh, he'll start sending me like text messages, calling me all kinds of names and calling my phone multiple times. Um, and then afterwards, I would still give him a chance. I will talk to him and give him a chance to do things, try to co-parent or give me a notice. And it's just like a never-ending cycle. So recently, it has escalated to basically him sending me threatening text messages. So just randomly one day, I got him at night, like at 10 or 11, saying all these things, and it was just like outrageous things. So I did have to file a police report, which I did. And then this last Friday, I went to apply for a protective order. Which it was even that itself was even hard for me because I was just sitting in a domestic violence office waiting for my appointment, and I was just while I was sitting there, I was like, I can't believe this is me right now, like sitting in this office, like waiting for an appointment. Um, so it's kind of conflicting. Like I don't know, I have like these thoughts in my head. I'm like, am I doing the right thing? I know it is the right thing to protect me, and make sure that it doesn't ever escalate to another thing, and make sure that safety comes first. But then I'm also thinking about my daughter, and I'm like, am I doing the right thing? Well, will he come around eventually? Am I doing even like the wrong thing by letting him come around when he feels like it? Is that more of a harm than actually her knowing that she has a dad? So that's pretty much the situation right now. I'm still waiting to see if it gets approved, but you know, um, I feel like I'm kind of proud of myself because I went, even though I didn't really want to go. Um, because this happened August 22nd. I filed a police report August 22nd, and they told me I could get a protective order. But I was kind of like, I knew I had to do it, but I was kind of like, oh, well, should I let it go? What if, and then I was like, what if something happens? So I'm kind of proud of myself that I did end up going. Hopefully, yeah, it gets approved.
Yeah. So it sounds like a lot of the feelings that you're experiencing right now are very, sort of like emotional, and there's a lot of confliction between, what you want to do, but what you think is like the right thing. But what is, like the right thing? Like you're just you're a mother who's trying to protect her child, trying to protect yourself, right? But it also sounds like, you want to do this, but also, is it fair that, she is no longer with, or potentially might not have a relationship with dad, right? So I want to go back a little bit to when you first moved back to Houston. Like, how was that experience for you, moving, having to come to terms with the fact that, you know, the situation between you and your ex partner, like, was that what was that experience like for you?
So I was really, to be honest, it was like mourning what you thought could have been, especially because I had been knowing him since I was 18 years old. And our relationship was good up until we had a child. So in my head, I was like, how could I go back to what we used to have? But it was just like I felt like once I had a child, it was just like to him, it was like, oh well, I got her, whatever. Um, because even after that, like he ended up cheating on me, and that was it for me. I think for me, I would say I would cry every night. Um, and then in the morning, it would just be like go to work, take my daughter to daycare, and I feel like that was it for me. Like I couldn't come back from that. But I do feel like I made the right choice as far as, breaking up and just moving on because I felt like the complete wasn't only disrespectful, but he knew that there would be no coming back from that. Um, and then he pretty much just left me with my daughter. Because he didn't take on any responsibility when it came to her. But I'm glad that I did have my parents' support, even though culturally, you know, the expectation was for me to get married with him and, you know, us have our family and have our home. And I think I was mourning that, what I thought it could be. Um, when you hear people say, well, um, especially like the older generations of my family, like, oh, well, I'll do that. Um, and that wasn't acceptable for me, or, well, you should have known better. Like it was a choice that I made to pick somebody who wasn't ready to be a dad. But then I was also young. I guess, I'm not the same person I was when I was 18. Life just seems so much more, I don't know, like less worries. You're in college, you're going out. It's not like a real relationship where you have to like endure some difficult moments. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, now that, you brought up a lot of, great things like just the concept of culture, in terms of like marriage or how that has shaped, not only who you are. And then I heard you say, the mourning too, like the thought of what could have been. Um,
mhm.
how are you dealing with, with that overall now? Like just the thought of that being something that just didn't happen or it didn't work out how you planned it to be. And do you feel like that affects your relationship with your daughter now, in any way? How are you dealing with that?
I think it has been different stages of like, the healing process. I don't think I'm there 100%. I feel like I would be there 100%. Well, I wouldn't think about it anymore. Well, I'm not necessarily sure if I will ever get to a point where I don't think about it. But initially it was mourning, like, it was a lot of sadness. And then it moved to like being angry. Because I would envision like how much I had to juggle by myself. And then in my head, I'm like, wow, his life is so much easier. Just wake up and do what he has to do. Meanwhile, I have to juggle 10 things and make sure that I show up as a mother as well. So, yeah, I feel like it also gave me a drive to want more and to always go get what I want in some kind of way, especially when it comes to like, my career or like when it comes to like things my daughter wants to do or um, making sure that I'm showing up for her all the time because I knew I was the only parent that was going to do it. And since it's been just the both of us, we're kind of like, there's a lot of communication with us and we talk a lot about feelings. Um, so people often tell me, she's very good with speaking about how she feels. And that's a proud moment for me. Because, you know, even as adults, some of us cannot speak about feelings or can say like, oh, I'm angry right now. Like, I need to take a moment, like stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, that makes me proud that, you know, if she grows up and is an adult, when she's an adult, she can say like, right now I am angry, so I'd rather not speak, or I want to take a moment for myself, or right now I'm sad, so I'll talk to you in a couple of minutes, like stuff like that. That obviously not all of us have.
And this is so good because, you know, what I heard you say earlier is that, you know, you struggle with the feeling of, again, did I make the right choice, right? But ultimately, you know, your daughter, again, your daughter and you are the things that you should keep safe, right? Do you think she would have had that same experience with being around her dad on a more consistent basis? The vulnerability to share her emotions, the but that takes time, that takes learned, you know, that like a learned environment, right? Like you have to, you know, work with the child to portray that. Do you think that she would have been able um to get that experience if she was with dad?
I think about that. I've thought about that sometimes. And I honestly don't think so, just because of how tense the environment was.
Mhm.
Um, like everything escalated to an argument when it could have been a conversation. And I feel like if she would have been around that environment, I don't think she would be as confident and outspoken as she is, even like when it comes to her emotions and stuff like that. So that makes me feel like I did the right choice when I walked away when she was like 6 months old.
Yeah. And that was a
Yeah.
very mature choice for you to make, even if I'm sure it was a difficult choice. But especially being young and, you know, feeling like, you know, like you're in love or, you know, these, all of these different feelings and emotions. So I'm sure that was a difficult choice for you to make, but I can hear and I think that you made the right decision by, you know, keeping her safe and realizing that, you know, she may not have gotten that experience, you know, um,
Mhm.
being in an environment like that. Okay, so now that you can, and I want you to think about that, like just like try to move when you're moving forward, like when you grapple with this idea of like confliction, you know, look back and think about like the progress that, you know, that she has made now, and try to think about that like leading into, you know, new situations, like, you know, good things that have happened from, you know, removal of said environment. um
Mhm. I think you bring up a great point when you say that, because I was recently having a conversation with my mom and about my like even like my growth when it came to my career. And one of the things was like I knew if I would have that situation, it would have halted my growth, because I would have been just okay with us being together. And it came to a point where um like my confidence wasn't what it used to be, because it was like he was making me doubt myself. Um yeah, so I think it benefited me as well, because now I feel like I can do anything.
Yeah, and that's amazing. I mean, that's really and that's really great. Again, just great to hear because it's hard being a mother, one, but when you're a single mother and like you mentioned, like trying to do everything, not only parent, but provide, teach all of the things that come with being, you know, a child. I mean, there's again like that emotional connection that you need. Children go through things, you know, how to handle, you know, for example, anger or all of these different things that arise, like, and doing that alone can be difficult, you know. I after reading like a lot of your intake information, like I did see that you have a strong support system. So I'm happy to see that, and it sounds like you're doing well, like in your career. What would you say is like the most, I guess the biggest source of support for you at this moment?
I would say my older sister, she has always I always call her my co-parent. Um because she's the one that really shows up for my daughter. And like let's say I'm at work and running late, like she picks up my daughter from school, or like she goes in my daughter and her plan to go buy my birthday present, or plan to go do things for me. Or for Mother's Day, they both plan together my dinner, or what is the day gonna look like, and like everything. Like she helps me out so much.
That's amazing. It's amazing to have a sibling like that that really steps up, and can be like not only a role model for your daughter, but also one that can really help you. Because again, things can get hard, right? Okay, so tell me a little bit more about the where you're at in the situation with the custody arrangement. So you went to the meeting on Friday. So what I guess what's the outcome that you're expecting or waiting for?
So I'm hoping that the protective order is going to get approved. The likelihood of it getting approved for me is much higher than getting approved for my daughter, because, the harassments and the threats are towards me. Um, and he hasn't displayed any kind of violence or any kind of things against our daughter, which I understand. Um, so I'm waiting for that to get approved. Hopefully next week it will get approved. Then it would be pretty much educating myself on what next steps would be. Um, I do want to go for full custody, but then in a way I'm like, um, should I do that? It's just conflicting. I just want to educate myself on all the options, because
Mhm.
of the protective order, and then that kind of limits my contact with him, even though we have joint custody agreements. But I'm like, if he doesn't come around, he can go missing for like 8 months at a time, or like it cycle. Should I go for full custody? I'm still having to, like, contact him in case I want to get a passport or renew a passport, contact him for certain things. And sometimes he doesn't want to show up, or, I was like, should I have to deal with that when I can take care of things by myself? And he'll still have the ability to see our daughter. I just need to be in charge of things legally when it comes to her. Because I'm having to communicate with certain things. And sometimes he doesn't respond back, or leaves me on red, or says he's not going to do it because he feels like he's being used, and it's all kind of things. Um,
Mhm.
so I would hope I would get primary custody, so then I can take care of those things. And whenever he's ready to come around, then he's always welcome to see his daughter. That's not the issue. I would like for him to be more consistent,
Mhm.
um, and show up when it's needed for him to show up. But I think that's some inner work he needs to do with himself. Before I've even tried to do therapy with him together, but he doesn't believe in therapy. Um, or like encourage him to do therapy by himself. Um, I even offered to pay for it. Um, and then his answer is like, I'm not crazy. And it's not about being crazy. Um, but like working some, because I know a lot of the problems that he deals with now, even when it comes to me and his anger, is a lot of childhood problems that he had growing up,
Mhm.
that when we used to have deep conversations, he would bring up, and he had a lot of hurt. So I understand, like, it's a deeper issue. I think it's bigger than me.
I think you have really great, like, you're able to self-reflect, and the awareness that you have is very good because I think you bring up a great topic of can be a discussion for another time, but just the importance of um, how men struggle in general to discuss emotions, but and sometimes again it could be based off childhood experiences that he has had, things that could be trauma related that he just hasn't been able to discuss, but also this is how the society that we live in, like we always put men like, they should be the provider or they should be, all of these things. But whenever we see a man down or crying or, it's like whoa, like that's sort of not normal. I think things are changing slowly. But I can see how that can make it more difficult for a man to be able to express himself, right? So I think that's so important that you can see that, of course he has things that have happened in his past, just like all of us, right? Um, but knowing that you connecting that with, maybe it's not just, it's something deeper for him, right? Something deeper where he can't be the father that he needs to be, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
How,
and I feel like in that sense that you just mentioned that, um, that's where the conflict in my head occurs. Because I'm like, I know he has gone through some difficult stuff growing up, and he was also raised without a father. Um, so I'm like, in a sense, I leave the door open for him to come back when he's ready. But then that also doesn't allow somebody, just because you're in a way being empathetic to the situation, to verbally abuse you any moment that they feel like it, um, or threaten you when something goes wrong in their life. So there has to be some accountability factor in that, um, where you can say like situations don't happen to me or people do things to me, but it's like some situations I put myself there for that to occur. And I think that's my biggest struggle when it comes to even speaking with him. It's like things happen to him and people do things to him, but there's no accountability as to why things are the way they are now, which makes it difficult.
yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And I mean, a situation like that does not give the authority for somebody to act like that way towards, you specifically, of the mother of the person's child. It doesn't get, it's no excuse. You're absolutely right. And people should be held accountable. However, we have to know that we cannot change his actions, right?
Mhm.
I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, like we know there's a problem there. We know that something's not right, but we can't, as much as we would love to guide him and give him, support, we can't change it until he's ready to make that change, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've come to terms with the fact that, he may not be in the picture, or he may not be a part of, your daughter's life? I mean, have you come I know that he's been in and out, like he's like a, sort of pops in here every now and then, like from what I've heard, but if this is the case, and it comes to terms that he may not be, I mean, have you really considered that? Have you thought about that more?
Yeah, I actually have. And I think that's why I'm getting to the point now where it's been 8 years and there's really doesn't seem any kind of effort to change it around, even though there's been years where he's like, oh, I'm ready to be the dad, and I'm ready to be the dad that she deserves and do everything that I have to do. And it's consistent for 2 weeks and then it's just back to the same old thing. So I feel like my daughter deserves consistency. And you know, I'm I got to a point where I'm like, I know he may never be what she deserves. Um, and I think that's the hardest part because, your kid deserves better.
Of course.
Yeah.
And this is
Yeah.
tough. It's hard, and while I might not be able to fully completely understand the full situation, I'm attempting to be, empathetic towards this, because it's hard, again, just being the single mom, reflecting on how you said, like, not being, sitting in a domestic violence office and thinking like, what, you know especially, it sounds like you've done all the right things, like you've gone to school, you've made a career for yourself, you've been the mom, but you can still struggle with, like, why is it, you know and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, why does my daughter have to pay that price?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, like in my head, I'm like, why does it have to be so difficult when things could be so easy?
Yeah.
It's like so easy.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, in the point I'm coming to as I get older, because if I told you like a 24-year-old, if I fully understood that, no, I was still like, it can still happen. We can still possibly one day work it out and everything would be fine for our daughter. But it's just like, now it's like, you know, in a sense, it's like, it is what it is. She deserves better. I deserve peace. And if I'm at peace, that means that I can be a better mom. And that's really what she deserves. So she deserves, I mean, if she's not at fault for anything, she deserves the absolute best for somebody to give her that,
Most
whether it's
definitely.
one parent or two parents.
Yeah, most definitely. Most
Mm.
definitely. Okay, well, I've heard many things today, and I'm wondering how you are, aside from, all of that that's happening, and recent, custody order arrangement and all of that going on, like how are you taking care of yourself outside of being a mom and a worker, which you value, right? But how are you taking care of yourself? How are you dealing with this?
I wouldn't say I'm the best at it. It could improve. Um, I try to make, I guess like I think of self-care of doing big things, like going on a trip or or stuff like that. But I'm finding like joy or like peacefulness in like painting like little number matches to the color kind of thing, or like I have journals like even when I'm frustrated or even if I'm having a good day, like I write it down, or I try to do this thing where um at least start off with what I'm grateful for, um which helps because when you feel like everything's going wrong, you can at least be like, okay, there's some positive in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that has helped, but I probably could get better. I know some of my goals are to start being a little bit more active. No, I wouldn't even say a little bit. I need to get my role on. Um, um, and maybe because I think of being active of like going running, and I just like think about dreading like running. It could be walking, right? So maybe thinking about it in that approach, like start like even if I just go walking. Because I think I've let like, I've been so indulged in being a mother and trying to be the best mother that I could be, where I like constantly lose myself, where I'm like, I'm always a mom. Like I have the mom earrings, the mom necklace, the mom bracelet. And even my sister brought it up one point. She was like, can we talk about Cynthia? Not Cynthia the mom. Or like even if I go out with my friends, I'm always like, oh, can I bring Hazel? But it's always because it's been us two together. So we're used to doing everything together. And it's kind of like I don't even think it's kind of hard on I don't think it's that's hard on her. I think it's hard on me. Because I feel like if I leave her, I'm not being a good mom. Um, yeah, but it's something that I'm working on. Hopefully I'll get a little bit better.
Well, that's a good, I mean, one, I'm glad that you're able to think of goals in your mind already that you want to achieve, right? That you would like to start working on. But also that statement that you made, like, I feel like I'm being a bad mom, right? Like that is such based on what I've heard today, like it's what we call a cognitive, it could be like a cognitive distortion, right? Because you're thinking like, if I leave daughter for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, like I'm like something's gonna go wrong, or I'm a bad mom, or all of these things that that you might be playing in your head. But in reality, like, daughter may be fine. She she's actually like, mom, go live your best life. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
so we can work on those things for sure. Do you plan to, aside from, it sounds like you like the hobbies like painting and things like that, and you want to go be more active. What about your personal like life? Like what about like getting out there, meeting new people and things like that?
I definitely need to do that. I haven't dated like in 8 years because I've just been so focused on being a mother and then my career, where I just like, where are they supposed to find me if I'm not? I'm expecting them to show up at my door. And my sister tells me that all the time. Like, you just need to get out there. Like, um, get your groove back on. But yeah, because it's kind of, I'm always like, when I get after work, I'm like, I don't want to go out. You should just push yourself one Friday to go out after work. Just like it starts small. Um, yeah, so I need to work on that. I'm definitely like act like I'm a older lady, just staying in and watching documentaries.
Okay, well, yes, definitely, of course, like moms need love too, and you owe that to yourself, right? Like you've done this done everything like, seems like right, and you seem to be in a good place. Especially from reading what you wrote down on your forms, but it would be good to reward, I don't want to say reward, but pay yourself back in that way, right? Like that's part of self-care, and it's important for you to thrive outside of being a mom and being a worker too, right? Okay.
Yeah,
All righty. Well, our time is coming to a close, but I would love to see you again next week if that's okay with you.
yeah, that works.
Okay, perfect. And then also I know that you are working towards like, maybe physical activity or really enjoying habits, but I was just consider like say like continue writing down if you're journaling or writing those things that you're saying that you're grateful for, like continue those positive things until we meet again, and then we can reflect on that, okay?
Yeah, that sounds
Okay.
good.
Do you have any questions?
No, this was really helpful. I even cried a
Oh.
little.
Okay, well, it was so nice meeting you, and I look forward to seeing you again next week, okay?
All right, thank
You're
you.
welcome. Bye.